we're going to start here, and we're just going to have you, we'll be behind you, but you're going to walk with us as we walk up.
Yeah, okay. This is where we have all of our council sessions, our voting sessions. So, this is the public gallery. We also usually have our inaugurations in here. So this is where the real votes take place. Yeah.
A new mayor for the city of San Antonio tonight. Ron Nirenberg, now the mayor-elect for the Alamo City.
San Antonio is going to have a brand new mayor.
A new dawn for San Antonio.
Returning for another term, Mayor Ron Nirenberg.
From the official transfer of power at City Hall.
Amid a high-profile and high-priced campaign to be his successor, we sat down with Ron Nirenberg for a conversation to find out what he and his administration have accomplished for the city of San Antonio.
I'm Ron Nirenberg. I've been your mayor for the last 8 years, and this is a closer look into my tenure as mayor.
This is a farewell to Ron. Not only has he been the longest tenured mayor in recent decades, but Ron also led San Antonio through COVID-19, jump-started the city's housing initiatives, spearheaded projects like SA Ready to Work, and so much more. With that, let's jump back in time to where it all began.
This election, this campaign is about substance, not style. I've got one color on my signs. I don't have as many signs as some other folks, but I think the ones that are out there mean a whole lot.
My first city council race was really a lesson in how local government works. And I was an upstart. I had no political background, certainly didn't have any name ID. And I was in one of the highest profile city council areas of our entire city.
Ron first ran against Rolando Briones, where they both endured a bruising race that included accusations of dirty politics and ethics violations.
It was a difficult campaign because I also learned that once you challenge the establishment comes after you. But I was very naive. I had no idea how the campaigns worked and how, the establishment really had influence in how campaigns turned out. I just worked hard, and I was always clear that I would never be outworked, no matter what deficit we were trying to overcome.
The race went into a runoff, where Ron won with 55% of the vote, securing him a spot on City Council from District 8.
From the first day in office as a city councilman in District 8, it was an 80-hour-a-week job. It really left no time for anything else. One of my formative experiences as a city council member was when we were updating the non-discrimination ordinance. I had many people tell me that if I supported the non-discrimination ordinance that I would be recalled, I'd lose my job. And this was only a couple months after, I had gotten elected in this very bruising race. And I remember thinking at the time that if I lost my job because I cast a vote that I believed was the right one to make, standing on my values and principles and leadership of this community, then it would have been worth it, however short my tenure was.
For me, this is about leadership, and it's about transparency and accountability in government. I worked for almost 10 years at the Annenberg Public Policy Center, going around the country, teaching people about why government is important. And what I found was universally, people who didn't get involved because they didn't see their interests represented, and they didn't feel like their voice mattered. They didn't trust their government. Our job, number one, is to restore that faith, because in 20, 30 years from now, we will suffer from the consequences of the decisions we make today.
You want me to check the sound? I'm Erica Prosper Nirenberg, if you'd like. I think it was similar to when he first told me he wanted to run for councilman. He's like, can we talk? And anytime he says, can we talk, I worry, because that means what's in his brain. And he was upfront with me. He told me, in essence, I feel like we're on a good path, but the ball's only been carried to the 10-yard line, and I want to see it all the way through to the goal.
People are often surprised when I tell them I don't have a roadmap to some other office. This is not part of a grand master plan. What I'm trying to do is serve my community in whatever capacity that I find myself in. So no, I did not have designs or idea that I would run for mayor one day.
At this point in time in 2014, then Mayor Julian Castro resigned from office to work in Washington. San Antonio City Council then elected Councilmember Ivy Taylor to replace him as interim mayor.
And we were on an incredible string with great momentum. And so it was a loss for us to lose that kind of leadership. And it was a bit brash, but I thought at that time, which is just a year into my tenure, looking around the dais, that I feel confident about my ability to keep that momentum going.
After giving it some consideration, Ron did not end up running for mayor in 2015. Instead, Ivy Taylor faced Leticia Vandepute. Taylor won with 52% of the vote, and Ron remained as the council member for District 8.
So I ended up supporting Mayor Taylor, but as things went on, politics got in the way, and I found our visions for the city diverging.
In the last 2 years, violent crime has skyrocketed. We've lost stature that we seek. Mayor Taylor says those are sound bites. Those are not sound bites. Those are bad decisions.
And so I really had just a few choices to make. One was I would just be content with being a dissenting opinion on the dais. Two is I could walk away. If I'm not having impact, why continue? Because that's why I was doing this work, is to make impact in my community. Or the third one is to, put up or shut up and run for mayor. If I didn't agree with the direction of the city at the time, either do something to change it or don't do anything at all.
And so after much thought and consideration, I have accepted that challenge. And so I'm declaring my candidacy and asking for your vote in the May 6, 2017 mayoral election.
In 2017, Ron ran for mayor with all the odds stacked against him. This was a truly impactful race, not just for the momentum of San Antonio, but for Ron's family as well. So, who better to tell you than his own son?
2017 one. I remember that one actually a lot because it was a debate, because they were talking about my dad, and they said something that was kind of demeaning, and I just yelled at him as a 5-year-old. I was just yelling out, "Nuh-uh," something like that. But it was witty. I don't remember what it was, but trust me, it was witty from a 5-year-old.
It was a challenging period of time because once again, I found myself coming up against the establishment. If you run against an incumbent, you're running against the establishment. That's just a matter of fact in political life. It was very challenging. I felt, and I was on an island quite a bit politically.
So I know that it was difficult, but I think the most difficult part for him was this idea of not sacrificing the district for the ambition of being mayor. It's my job to be kind of, in a weird way, protective. I asked all kinds of questions. First of all, do you feel like you've had enough time in city council? It's been 2 terms, 4 years. What are the issues you're going to really focus in on? Because there's a lot to be done. And in some respect, I thought, okay, well, go for it. Risk it, honey. I'll be here when it doesn't happen. And then it happened.
After campaigning against more than a dozen candidates, including the incumbent, Ron made it past the general election and continued his race for the city's highest seat.
The 2017 campaign specifically, I didn't really understand the impact of. But I think it really did have a big impact on my life and on the lives of a lot of people.
Looking through the eyes of Jonah and his generation was that in many ways, I felt like we were beginning to slip into idle as a city.
Our current mayor wants you to think that San Antonio is doing okay, but just okay is not good enough. I'm Ron Nirenberg. As your mayor, I'll work with you to make San Antonio the city you deserve.
In restoring equity in the city that had been so socioeconomically divided for generations, and that's what I ultimately ran on for mayor.
And he did just that. The race went into a runoff, and Ron defeated Ivy Taylor with 54% of the vote, securing his spot as the next mayor of San Antonio.
Let me know when you're ready. Yeah, we're good. This is my favorite thing in the office. It was a photo taken when I was sworn in as mayor, and that's Jonah there. To me, it captures my essence as a mayor.
For me, I think that painting specifically exemplifies why he ran, because it's for the people that will live in San Antonio, and he just thinks he can do better for them, a city that they deserve.
And so I think my election, being the first candidate to defeat an incumbent mayor in over 20 years, was a message that the community largely saw those challenges on the horizon the same way I did. That we want to aggressively meet the needs of the future so that we can live into our potential of being one of the great American cities.
Once elected, Ron hit the ground running. With a comprehensive plan ready to go, he began to act on his policies.
I wanted, by design, the first document I signed to be the Charter for Compassion, which recognized that compassion should drive all public policy. I ran on a platform in part to create the city's first ever comprehensive and compassionate housing strategy for the city of San Antonio. The two main recommendations from the Mayor's Housing Policy Task Force was, number one, we have literally dozens of housing organizations and departments that are in the process of influencing housing in our city, but they weren't aligned. They were all moving in different directions, and so aligning the ecosystem of housing was job number one. We did that. The other major finding is that we needed someone to coordinate that effort at the city, and having a chief housing officer for the first time at our city has allowed us to stay on track.
The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord.
And the same thing with resiliency. At the time, President Trump had just got elected to his first term, and we all saw the steam engine of climate change coming at us with really no leadership in the White House at the time. The Climate Action and Adaptation Plan has several elements to it, but overall, what we're trying to do is mitigate the impacts of climate change, which we know are occurring. There are several ways we do that, several strategies. One of them is how we transition our CPS energy away from high emission, expensive sources of energy by creating a generation plan that ends the use of coal almost 4 decades ahead of schedule. That's a major pillar of our approach, but also to ensure we have sustainable energy that's more affordable in the long run. Both of those, the housing strategy and the Climate Action Adaptation Plan, were built on this idea that we should be building and planning a city that is better for future generations, that we can meet the needs of today and also ensure that our children and grandchildren inherit a city that's even better.
This photo here, is that okay? Can you see that? So this was a photo taken after the runoff in 2019 when I was literally fighting for my life.
The mayor's race will not be decided tonight. It looks like we may be heading to a runoff. Mayor Ron Nirenberg and District 6 Councilman Greg Brockhouse.
It was a really intense, emotional moment for us, and I keep it there because literally that night I won by the skin of my teeth after a really challenging period of time in San Antonio politics.
Just another lie. At the end of the day, we can't be all talk and no action.
Talk about Ron's failed leadership the last 2 years.
Ron Nirenberg needs to be elected. That's all he's got in his life,
There's
apparently.
no rebuttal to the rebuttal to the rebuttal.
The opposition to me had consolidated around, very conservative, Trump-esque rhetoric. We had all of the political powers from outside of San Antonio also joining forces. So that was an extremely divided moment in politics locally.
It was also emotionally a wear-down race. And you had the other candidate embroiled in their own scandals and then trying to deflect that by accusing my husband somehow of the very thing that he was accused of. And
in fact, I thought this would come up, Councilman, so I printed out your delinquent tax report right here. You owe property taxes to the Bexar County Appraisal District. So if you'd like to take a look at it, I can give it to you now.
False. There's no,
it is a fact. Everyone is taking care of their fair share except for Councilman Brockhouse.
And the repercussions of it were felt across the board. I felt them personally. My son felt them. All of that, the whole of it, was just something that no one had prepared us for.
After a brutal contest with no shortage of personal attacks, on June 8th, 2019, at 9:12 p.m., Brockhouse had conceded. Ron won the race with 51% of the vote. The election served as an opportunity for Ron to refocus his vision for the city and charge full steam ahead.
Oh, for sure. I think the 2019 one specifically was taxing for him, but it also was, in a way, a good thing to happen. He focused less on getting elected. It led to him being more straightforward with his policies, with him as a person, and it led to him being more of a statesman and less of a politician.
Because I believe the first few years, most of the time he was drowned out by all these little things that he was chasing without really understanding that his goal was to move the big rocks, like you said. And I think that wake-up call was 2019, when he realized it was going to be gone like that.
It's incumbent upon the people who are entrusted with the office to bring people together. And I think successfully we have done that in the 2 years after this. As we restored trust, we brought more unity and common ground to the political scene here in San Antonio. So that was a moment of rebound, as difficult as it was.
Despite a tough race against Brockhouse, 10 months into Ron's second term, the world was hit by a pandemic, and San Antonio was forced to respond.
As you know, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention notified us yesterday that they had released an individual into our community who, after 2 consecutive negative tests, was tested weekly positive for the coronavirus.
When COVID-19 gripped all of our cities across the country, we had no playbook, no blueprint to deal with it, and we had no leadership in Washington because the response was chaotic at best. We began to band together as mayors and talk to each other about how are we dealing with the different challenges that were arising.
To date, there's still only 1 confirmed case of COVID-19 in San Antonio, and the threat to the general public remains very low.
Going back to the importance of public trust, make sure that we were being transparent about what we knew, what we didn't know, and made sure that we were keeping the public informed about what we were seeing with COVID-19 and the impacts in our community.
So let me hand it off now to Fair County Judge Nelson Wolf.
We're doing everything within our power to protect our community, to make sure this disease does not spread.
Because we wanted to show a unified team response, coordinated, we were all working together. Remember the phrase, we're all in this together?
Tonight, I want to speak with you about our nation's unprecedented response to the coronavirus outbreak.
Very quickly here in the state, it became a partisan political issue.
I have repeated several guidelines.
I've been urging Americans to get vaccinated, but I also believe in individual liberty.
And that's when that placed the spotlight and the burden on local leaders to help ensure that their communities could get through the pandemic. Part of that was also being transparent when there were mistakes made. There were a couple of times where measures were put in place, they were not effective, and we pulled those back immediately. In hindsight, we all should have collectively been stronger in support of the schools that wanted to stay open. There were a lot of things going on where we didn't have enough information, that we were trying to do the best we can just to protect the lives of the public. And I think overall we did that. We maintained trust, we were acting transparently, and ultimately, if crisis ever hits again, those are the elements that will help us get through it.
So we are here to help. We're working together as a community, all of us together, to get through this together. We are all in this together.
As the world adjusted to its post-pandemic reality, Ron was now able to continue his vision he first had for the future of San Antonio, and where better to invest than the people.
This is the City Council chambers, and it's one of the more dramatic buildings for a local government in the country. This is the podium where speakers come. It's also the podium where, you take your oath of office. So you remember the painting. This is where I was standing with Jonah. This has been the dais for City Council for several decades now. I sit in the middle there. That used to be my desk when I was on District 8.
For Ron's 2021 re-election, he faced an all too familiar opponent, but he won resoundingly this time with 61% of the vote.
On that note, a very short fable from Aesop.
Yeah, look, it is, yeah. So I'll read it. A
lioness and a vixen were talking together about their young, as mothers will.
As to which of the animals could produce the largest number of whelps at birth.
My litter of cubs is a joy to see, said the fox.
They went to the lioness and asked her to settle the dispute.
But I notice you never have more than one. No, said the lioness grimly.
But that one is a lion. So no matter how much you have, never argue with the quality. If you want to run for District 8, run for District 8. If you want to run for mayor, run for mayor. But be sure that's what you want to do. Be sure that's what you believe in, and be sure that you can make it better.
Ron continued to take aim at generational poverty by implementing the voter-approved piece of legislation in SA Ready to Work.
The genesis of Ready to Work came during the pandemic. Our community had 120,000 families lined up for food at the food bank just to keep food on the table. That's not economic prosperity for a city. We're going to create pathways so that people who are underemployed, who are working poverty wages, can be retrained for jobs that we know need to be filled. And so Ready to Work became that pathway. The average participant in the Ready to Work program is a single mom in a household making less than $14,000 a year. So you can imagine what the challenges are of maintaining that household. When that person gets placed in a job, the average wage is $43,000 a year with benefits. If we can do that now for multiple people in our community, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, that becomes community transformation.
SA Ready to Work has been a groundbreaking initiative, but it's backbreaking work to reach the most underserved in our community. Which begs the question, is money spent on something so new money well spent?
The money that has been approved by voters to support each individual person's journey from poverty to economic mobility does not get spent until that person goes through that journey. Understand that each person that's impacted is extraordinarily hard work, but those resources are there until that person is truly helped.
Ron won his third and final re-election in 2023. Knowing that these would be his final years, he spent his fourth term preparing the city for economic success long after he leaves office.
I think it's very clear now that San Antonio has the most comprehensive and well-resourced educational and workforce pipeline in the country. And that is because we have expanded and reauthorized the pre-K for SA program. And at the end of that, we also now have the Alamo Promise program, which is ensuring that every single Bexar County high school graduate can go to college for free. You couple that now with the Ready to Work program, we have that option as well. So from cradle to career, we have options for everyone in our community that wants a chance at a better life. That is what will ultimately change the future of San Antonio for the benefit of this entire community.
These are all of the Alamo Bowls that I've been to. So I've got one more to add, but this is a plate, a weight plate I took from Olympic Gym before it shut down. That was a place where I learned a lot and became a strength athlete in the process. So that's just a keepsake for me. I keep it with me. Yeah, this is a real belt. See, they put me next to Muhammad Ali from the WBC. I did not earn that. Let's see, what else? So this is a kirpan given to me by a member of the Sikh community. Strength is most powerful when it's not wielded. And that's sort of the symbol. I'll be honest, I haven't read all of these, but and I've got a lot more in here. You know, here's Portraits of Courage. This is the paintings of the Wounded Warriors by George W. Bush. He came and brought that exhibit here in San Antonio. I have a book of the Quad at Fort Sam. Just a variety of things that I think shows the different dynamics of San Antonio. It's always a marvel to me, and it's a great lesson in San Antonio about how inclusive we are as a city. The fact that we find strength in our diversity and really we embrace each other, not in spite of our differences, but largely because of them. You know, I became the first ever Asian American mayor of the city of San Antonio, and it just so happens that after Nelson Wolff retired, we elected our first ever Asian American county judge at the same time. And it happens to be here in the largest Latino majority city in the country, which shows you the kind of heart and inclusive perspective of San Antonians. I also should note that both of us married Latinas, and I'm raising a Latino at home right now, so it is showing a diaspora of San Antonio. And so walking up here after taking the oath and finally sitting down, but this was my old desk. I used to sit here. In fact, I remember one of my earliest memories was Jonah sitting in my lap. A picture was taken up there, but me telling him how the buttons worked and everything. So,
you know, I haven't really reflected on the longevity of my life here. It's been a long time. When I think about how long I've been here, it's really a function of how much my son has grown. He was a toddler that needed to be carried around when I first ran for city council. Now,
and I always talk about what's happening 10, 20, 30 years from now, and it's really because of him.
He's almost a man of the world.
I sometimes go back to that speech. I sometimes rewatch it because it is definitely a personal thing. I'm seeing the aspirations that he has before any of it has been guaranteed. I'm seeing him taking risks and believing in himself and believing that he can make this community better. And then I'm seeing it after that, after what I believe he made the city into a city that we all deserve.
So this is where I sit now.
I am humbled by the opportunity and the faith that people have put in me to serve this long.
Usually have laptops and stuff plugged in here, but
it has allowed me to take a concept like equity and restoring equity in communities.
This is where I spend most of my time.
And carry it through to actual policy planning and implementation. That's what the power of being able to serve for 8 years has allowed me to do.
It made me a sign for my desk, so I had it there, but I've kept it here ever since. What I feel is my biggest personal accomplishment is to have the respect of my wife, Erica, after all these challenging years.
So I kept going, not just because I was his spouse. I kept going because as an actual voting citizen, I'm like, this is a good human being who wants good things for the city. And I'll be darned if I'm not going to support him.
She is the most brilliant person I've ever met. Even from the first day I met her, I'm trying to impress her. So the fact that she is proud of the work that I've done is, in my opinion, the biggest accomplishment of my life. What I'm going to miss is that from this chair, process of dialogue and democracy, you can really change the trajectory of an entire city, and you do it from this seat.
That for me has always shown a special place in my heart.
Aesop's Fable, I used to carry the book around with me, a little short book, because there's wisdom in those fables.
So I want you to know, no matter how many signs you see out there, no matter how many funds we raise tonight or any other night, that this campaign will be a lion, and I will make you proud, I promise you. Thank you.
I am proud of you. And I do believe that what you did has left a positive impact on our community, but I will leave you with this. Don't stop. Because what you believe in, it's not about politics, it's not about a position, it's about making the community better. And whether it be local government, whether it be something other than that, that's what you need to do. You need to make our community better, and that just doesn't stop. It needs to be something that you do.
You went from this guy who nobody could even pronounce his name, who wore out his shoes literally to holes walking every neighborhood he could, to one of the most respected mayors of this country.
It has been an honor and a privilege to serve as mayor of your city, and I will always consider it. What do I say? Golly, I should have prepared for this. This is like a sign-off. I don't want to do that yet. Yeah. Well, the honor and privilege of my life to serve as your mayor here in San Antonio. I hope I've made you proud, and I will plan on continuing to do so wherever life takes me.
And this is a very humbling seat, and it's a powerful one for good if it's used the right way. And I've felt over the last 8 years I've been able to do that. Now, this is a city I love, and that'll be an aspect of the work I'll miss, at least at the city level, but I'll always have a voice.